In this lesson, we're going to cover some of the ways that we can advertise routes to our BGP neighbors. In BGP, there are several ways that we can announce routes. Recall that BGP won't announce a route unless that route exists in the routing table as either an exact match or a more specific route related to an aggregate. Some of the simpler ways to announce routes are with the network command and the redistribute command. On switch 4 in our lab, let's add another loopback interface and a static route to demonstrate both options. So if we issue the command show IP interface brief, we can see the IP addresses that we currently have. Let's add another interface, interface loopback 2. Config, enter, interface loop 2, enter, IP address 192.168.144.1/24. And then let's also add a static route, IP route 192.168, and this time let's use 244.0/24, and we'll point that to null 0. Enter. The use of null 0 is simply a way for us to get the route into the routing table. This is a trick that some may call a nail-up route, and it's used to get an appropriate route into the routing table for announcement. It's also used as a way to purposely black hole traffic. Some may use it in the case of denial of service attacks. Now, let's announce our new loopback and our new static route in BGP. Router BGP 65004, enter, network, and then question mark. So that's the network statement is one way for us to announce a route. So here we'll put in the network address. Let's use the loopback 2 example, 192.168.144.0/24. Enter. And then for our redistribution, redistribute, and then let's put in a question mark where we can see our options are connected, intermediate system to intermediate system routes, OSPF v2 and OSPF v3, RIP, or static. So in this case, we're going to use static, and then another question mark, and you can see that there's a route map option. I've mentioned best practice or recommended practice a few times before, so I should mention here that a common or best practice is to associate a route map with the redistribution so that we can ensure that we control what gets announced. Otherwise, a wide open redistribute static or redistribute connected command could lead to us announcing something that we really shouldn't be. So the two-step process of announcing the route and updating a routing filter tied to a route map might be a good idea. So here we'll just leave the redistribute static, enter, and then verification, show run section router BGP, enter. And we can see in the output that we have our new network statement for the 192.168.144.0, and we have our redistribute static. Before we log on to one of our neighbors to see if we are receiving these two new route announcements, let's look at what our BGP says it's advertising. So if we do a show IP BGP summary, and then let's pick on switch 5, show IP BGP neighbor, and then 172.16.200.22, we have the option here where we could look at advertised routes. So we'll put in advertised-routes, enter. And in the output, we can see that we're sending specifically to this BGP neighbor, switch 5. And here you can see the 192.168.144, which is our loopback 2, and then 192.168.244, which is our static route that we're redistributing via BGP. So let's jump over to switch 5 and check what his routing table looks like. Get out of configuration mode, exit the switch, log into switch 5, and in here, show IP route, or if we want, we can specifically focus in on BGP with the show IP route BGP command and hit enter. And we can see in this output that both those networks have made it into the routing table of switch 5, both the 192.168.144.0/24 and the 192.168.244.0/24. Another command we could look at would be show IP BGP neighbor 172.16.200.21, and before we'd looked at advertised routes from switch 4. Here we can see received routes and hit enter. And we can see in that output the 192.168.144 and the 192.168.244. In summary, we have several ways to announce routes with Arista's BGP implementation. In this case, we use both the network statement and the option to redistribute routes learned via another means, such as a static route. We'll cover some route filtering in our other BGP lessons.